This is a podcast from the Samplecast, Volume 3, Episode 72.
The Samplecast.
Hello, I'm Ruben Cornell. Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this episode of the Samplecast. This is going to be a reasonably short, sharp show this week, but as usual, there's plenty of things to pack in. There'll be some bargains and freebies later on in the show, and I'll be looking at Moto cellos in quite a lot of detail later on in the show. That's this week's big review. Of course, there's also the usual roundup of news and such like as well. Before I get into that, I want to let you know how to contact the show. If you didn't know already, you can head to the Samplecast website. All of the details are on there. That's thesamplecast.com. You can tweet me at thesamplecast, or you can email thesamplecast@gmail.com. Or you can bug me directly on Facebook, just search for The Samplecast or me. I'm Ruben Cornell, and I have a very much open and public profile, which is pretty terrifying in this day and age, but I am on there, so feel free to send me your thoughts, your good wishes, your bad wishes if you want to. Go on, you can troll me, I don't mind. Don't forget as well that there's a YouTube version of the show. If you're only listening to the podcast, then of course you're just hearing the audio of all of these libraries. If you want to see their interfaces, graphics, tech specs, that sort of stuff, everything is available there on the YouTube show, and I try and digest and smash everything down into easy bite-sized chunks. So go over to YouTube, just search for the Samplecast, and you'll be able to find me on there as well. So without further ado, let's get on to the show.
Roundup.
So let's start with one of the biggest releases of the week. This is two sampled harps from Orchestral tools. It's called Berlin Series Symphonic Harps, and as ever, they've been recorded in the Teledeck scoring stage in Berlin. And this is a 40GB compressed package running in the full version of Contact 5.5.1 and above. The library features true pedal control, playable glissandi patches, many stackable articulations, and release damping, amongst lots of other features as well. There's a downloadable PDF available with all the details on the Orchestral Tools website. Although I've not had the chance to play with this library, it does look like another great release from them, so have a look at their site for more details. The guys from ADSR keep sending me emails all about their latest releases, which are usually focused on dance production, so I don't normally put them in the show, but this one did catch my eye. It's called Cartel Hall Textures and Drones from Laniakea Sounds, I hope that's right. And this is a sample pack of over 100 noises, textures, drones and music loops in WAV format. I rather like the demo track available for this, and it's just $20, so maybe worth a look. Have a check on the ADSR website. Those good folks at Vienna have a new sampled Yamaha concert piano, and this has been recorded in their newly refurbished Synchron scoring stage. The stats for this library are quite staggering. It's got up to 4,200 samples per key, a new playback engine, and realistic half and repedaling. The piano also has 6 different presets for different timbres and applications, and there are 2 versions of the piano available, one with more mic positions than the other, so do check out the VSL site for the exact stats. Personally, I don't use VSL products day to day, but I know lots of other people who do, and they'll be excited to have a piano recorded in the same space as their other orchestral libraries, so do check it out. Modwheel are renowned for developing crazy contact instruments that no one else has thought of, and their latest release, bass Banjo, is no exception. This runs in the full version of Contact 5.6 and above. It's just over 2 gigabytes in size. Now, they sent me this for a test run and a little play about with, and I managed to coax some very interesting and unusual sounds from it. Although you can play this library like a standard banjo, the fun really starts when you start to mess around with the percussion and the synth patches. There are 10 patches in total with built-in FX and arpeggiators. It's definitely an unusual one, so do check it out at the Modwheel site. Lastly, a pair of libraries from Umlaut Audio. Some people will know Umlaut from their inspiring ARP, pad and beat contact libraries, and they've recently started producing WAV packs. Clouds came out a few weeks ago and Virga last week, and these are very long evolving textures that are extremely subtle. Umlaut asked me to put together a couple of videos to show off the sounds, so do take a look at those. They're available online, and within those I've recreated the styles of Thomas Newman and some other composers. There are around 100 sounds in each of these packs, and they're labelled with root key, and you can mix and match them. Virga also has a simple contact engine for the WAVs, and you can take extra control over the sounds with FX and sequencing. There's more information about these at the Umlaut site.
Bargain VST.
This week's bargains, and there's three big ones. The first is a big library from Sample Logic, and it's a favourite amongst many people. This is CineMorphX. It's got over 6,000 instruments included and is 38 gigabytes in size. CineMorphX features a full browser, morph options, hot swappable effects, and full randomization. It'll run in Contact Player and also includes an almost 2-hour video course on how to make the most out of the library from Ask Audio. CineMorphX has never been more than 40% off as far as I can recall, but this week you can pick it up for 75% off using the code CINE75. Head to the link in the show notes for details. This is another hot 75% off deal, this time on Vasilian Studios Harp. This is a chromatic sampling of a 34-string lever harp with up to 4 round robins and 3 velocity layers. It runs in the full version of Contact 5.6.8 and above. It's roughly 4 gigabytes in size, and it's a lovely sounding instrument with multiple articulations and effects patches. There's bonus content here too. You also get a tenor voice and 240 vocal phrases included. These are very nice, and for the price, I think I would probably pay that for the vocal patches alone. You also get $15 to spend in the audio plugin deal shop, so that's quite a lot of content for the money. This was almost $60 originally, but it's now discounted to $14.99. Do click the link in the show notes for details. I've been involved with putting together the walkthrough videos for SoundSpot plugins for a couple of years now, and I certainly recommend them for creative sound mangling. They're pretty inspiring. They're normally on some kind of discount when they're first released, but you can currently pick up 4 of them in a bundle for 90% off. So you get Axis, Nebula, Oracle and Orbit. They're mostly all multi-effects plugins for sound design and different kind of creative musical possibilities. Do click the link in the show notes for the full information. Hi there, and welcome to this overview for SoundSpot's Axis plugin for Mac and PC. This is a multiband imager and compressor with an easy-to-use interface and some stellar monitoring functions. Axis can be used to fix up problematic stereo parts, make your mix wider, compress and expand tracks, monitor and adjust multiband frequency ranges, and all of those things combined in just one instance of Axis. So let's take a look. Axis is split into 2 sections. The upper frequency window shows the 4 different bands, and it's easy to change the crossover points just by dragging the handles. You can isolate the bands for accurate monitoring using these 4 buttons. Each of the 4 bands has separate modules for imaging, compression and expansion, and metering and levels. Just select the band here and the module here. Having separate soloing and band select controls means that you can listen to one whilst changing the parameters of another if you want to.
The Big Review.
Here's this week's big review, and we're covering Moto cellos from Performance Samples. Now, the rise of Performance Samples continues, and this week they've released the first part of a new collection. There's also going to be bass, violins and violas, as far as I understand it. This is the cellos, and it runs in the full version of Contact 5.5.1 and above, and it's around 2 gigabytes in total, so quite a small library. It downloads using the Continuata system and features 6 cellos recorded in 4 microphone positions with 3 velocity layers and 2 different types of attack. So let's have a listen. The interface here is just about as simple as you can get. It's got controls for the 4 mic positions, which are close first chair, close section, decker and wide. There are panning and volume controls for each of these, and you can route them to different contact outputs. There's only really one main articulation to speak of, which is a sustain, where you can choose to engage the legato transitions or not with the key switches, and it's also possible to change the position of those key switches. If you've used other Performance Samples libraries before, then you've got a pretty good idea of how this works. The Italian phrase con moto literally means with movement, and that's the USP of this library, as the samples have been snipped out of performances. The tone here is warm, and on the whole it's well balanced, but it's not especially dry. Even the close mics retain a fair amount of hall ambience. This really is one of those libraries that you can just pick up and play, and it does a decent job of both longs and shorts. It can also be played at speed without becoming unstuck, so I really like that. Moto Cellos really excels at legato phrasing as well, especially if you bear in mind that the slower attacks can be played by hitting the keys at lighter velocities. I do have several gripes with this library. First, there are lots of notes where when you start to play a phrase, with the hard attacks you'll get a kind of double attack sound on the first note. This is most notable on the Decca and wide mics. This is mentioned within the online manual, and also within the manual there are warnings for Logic users that the library may not run correctly for them all of the time, and there are also instructions in that manual for going under the hood and changing the velocity range of the attacks. And this is really where I have the problem. Now, although I do like the sound of this library and many of Performance Sample's other products, I do feel that the time has come for them to step it up a gear and start working on some general improvements to build their legacy of content. I know that their mantra is function over form, as stated on their website, but I think it would really help them to deliver their instruments with more appealing interfaces, especially this time around where in the manual users are being told to fiddle under the hood to change some parameters. This is really the sort of thing that should be on the main GUI. It's the same for the double attacks and the logic and audio unit issues. Yes, all of this is made clear on the website so that users can be aware of this before they decide to purchase the library, but this is almost becoming a list of issues for people to be mindful of before they decide to purchase. And if I'm looking at a library, I don't want to be thinking about, does it work with this particular setup that I have, and do I have to go under the hood? I just want things to work. Cost is another issue, and quite frankly I also think this library is too much for a single string section with basically one articulation. It's a great sound, but nevertheless it's very limited content for the full price of $149. If I was looking at this library as a new user, I think I'd probably wait until all 4 sections are complete. Maybe they'll be bundled together at some point, and perhaps some of the issues I've previously mentioned will be dealt with. Until then, it's really difficult for me to recommend Moto Cellos as value for money within the current marketplace, despite the top-notch legato performance. For more info and audio demos, do check the Performance Samples website.
Free VST.
A couple of great freebies this week. The first one from Performance Samples. I reviewed their cellos earlier on in the show. They've got lots of freebies on their site, and they've just added a new one, which is low string effects. So you get percussives here, risers and downers, and these have been sampled from a 14-piece ensemble. There are also 2 contact instruments included here, but you don't necessarily need to use those. You can just play the sounds as WAVs. The other freebie is a lovely sounding collection of 30 atmospheres and musical motifs from Audio Modern. It's called Momentum. They're between 40 seconds and 1 minute and 30 long, and they come as WAV files labelled with the root key. You just need to register on the Audio Modern website to get the download link, and the description is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, if you are listening on iTunes, it would be absolutely brilliant if you could spend just 5 or 10 seconds going over to iTunes, reviewing and rating us. Just a couple of kind words on there would really help and helps increase the visibility of the show so that people can more easily find it. As I said at the top of the show, there's lots of ways to contact us. Basically, if you go on the Samplecast website, all the details are on there. And we also have an Instagram now, so you can check that out. I put lots of silly pictures on there throughout the week when time permits. And I will see you again next week. Bye-bye now.